Got a question. Ever felt like your thoughts get tangled up? Like they make sense in your head but not out loud? Welcome to Leave It to Larimore, the space where we slow down, speak up, and sort it all out. No experts, no script, just real talk, real people, and a real understanding. I'm your host, Bryant Larimore, and together, we're untangling life, one conversation at a time. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this conversation is kind of different, absolutely necessary. I've had a lot of questions about my personal thoughts as it relates to relationships and when it's time to let those relationships go, or are you when you decide to hold on, to a relationship. And that question did not come to me from a professional standpoint because I am no professional. So it came to me from an experience standpoint. And I think that I can honestly say that I definitely have been on both sides of maybe letting go of a relationship way before I put the work and the effort in to see if it could have been sustainable. I've also been that person that have held on to a relationship far longer than what I should have. It definitely should have been something that I let go, but I don't believe that severing ties should mean that, you hate a person. Not every relationship is meant to even last forever. I mean, at some point and this is my personal take, we're gonna grow regardless. You're gonna grow, I'm gonna grow, we're gonna grow. I think the only difference is either we're gonna grow together or we're gonna grow apart. And oftentimes, I believe that we're headed to the place to where growth separates. And we fight harder to stay in a position that we're supposed to outgrow than we do trying to figure out how to work in the position that we're growing into. I think that there's so many times where we hold on to situations because of the fear of thinking that someone is going to believe that we hate them or that there's going to be some type of misunderstanding or static, between you and an individual. When you do kind of make that decision to let go of a relationship or a friendship, even within the family barriers, we've had prior conversations about boundaries. And some of those boundaries are established to know when to let go. And it's crazy because one of my favorite singers is Lalah Hathaway. And in the words of one of her songs, she says, if you never look at yourself, when will you ever know to take flight? If you never do that self-evaluation, when will you know that it's time to let go? When do you know that you have surpassed the boundary line? If you never take a time to find out through self-evaluation and where you stand, according to the things that you really want and what you want to see, are you really taking a full account of that relationship and to make sure that it is equally beneficial? I feel like that it is as much as your responsibility to know when you have nothing else to offer the relationship, that it's also that equally your responsibility to make a decision to do something different, as it is being the person that's going through that relationship where you feel like you're over given into something that's empty. So you have to really evaluate those friendships, evaluate those relationships, because we want to be equally yoked. And equally yoked doesn't mean that you do for me what I do for you, but it definitely means that we're headed in the same direction, that we're carrying the same amount of weight and responsibility within the relationship. You know, I don't think that we often sit back enough to really realize that we sometimes confuse loyalty with obligation. You know, that the history keeps us tied to unhealthy patterns. And because we're used to it, we stick with it, or the fear of being seen as disloyal or cold or ungrateful. You know, all of those are the reasons why we stay much longer, you know, than we should. There are certain circumstances that come up, you know, that puts us in a position where we stay longer than we should. And if we feel unappreciated and unseen, we have to really dig into those feelings. And it is important, I always say, to make sure that you go see a therapist, someone who is licensed and capable of helping you navigate through those feelings, to make sure that you're not thinking from an irrational perspective as well. You know, so we want to make sure that we're definitely doing the work to get a clear understanding of what that looks like, so that we're not overgiving and overdoing and overstaying our welcome within any type of relationship. You know, oftentimes we remember that who that person used to be, and, you know, we hope that they're gonna change back, and we don't want to start over, and all of those reasons are the reasons that we stay miserable, that we stay frustrated. And oftentimes it's just the fear of being alone. Unresolved issues that you have not talked to anyone about. You know, and personally, those were some of the things that I dealt with. You know, I found myself overgiving and overdoing and staying in relationships where I've been shown over and over and over that they were done, but my attachment would not allow me to let go. And I had to look at where I was at that made me feel as if my value was so minimized that I had to fight to be in a place where it was proven and shown that I was not being loved, I was not being respected, I was not being considered. And you stay, and you have to find out where those missing pieces are in your life that put you in a position that makes you feel like you deserve it, or this is what you have to kind of deal with, and not taking in consideration that you're better than having to be settled for. You're better than someone having to tolerate you. You are enough to where someone should look forward to celebrating you. They should appreciate what you bring to the table. They should appreciate what you have to offer. And if you are in those places where you find yourself overgiven and being overlooked and not being considered, you really need to evaluate what the value of that relationship is from both perspectives. Because oftentimes we find ourselves in places where we think we are doing a service to someone, and oftentimes they want to be released and they don't even know how to say it. But you have to know when you've given yourself and when you've overdone and when you have exhausted your ability to maintain your strength, because that has to be considered. And so oftentimes we find ourselves in those places where we've overgiven, overstayed, and we did not really take full consideration what the value of what this exchange fully looks like. Is this really a balanced friendship? Are you as equally available for me as I am for you? Do you really see me as a priority in your life? Am I something that you can just fit in as time permits? Do you see yourself being considered from the perspective in which you consider? So to wonder if there is a real conversation around when it's time to stop and see if we're needing to redirect and see what direction we need to go in next. Because I may have overstayed my welcome. My friends often tease me because if we are in the middle of having a great time and we have gotten into the storytelling, joke, giving moment, and I end up saying something funny enough to make you bust your gut, I'm probably gonna grab my keys and leave. That is typically my sign that it's time to go. And I'm oftentimes criticized because my friends are like, hey man, we're having such a good time, where are you going? I'm like, man, if I can leave while everybody's laughing, I'll always be welcome back. If I wait until you're ready for me to leave, every time I leave, you're gonna dread seeing me. So I know that once we are having the gut-busting, laughing good time, that's a good time to make my exit. And that is the image that you'll get or that you'll have when you think of me, because that will be the last thing that we did. We laughed very, very hard, and then I left. And I think that that is because I always want to be an asset and not a liability. I want to add something to the room. You know, I used to say where I'm at, things get better. And if things don't get better, then I'm in the wrong place. And so I take in consideration that I am supposed to be an additive to the atmosphere. I'm supposed to give something, but I'm also supposed to take in consideration when I've given too much, when I've done too much, when I've overstayed my welcome, when I haven't made clear that the boundaries that I set for myself, and this is in business. You know, I have seen myself of lesser value than what I actually offered at times. So I was okay with getting the minimum because that's what I thought that I deserved, knowing that everyone else seen that it was far more valuable than what I considered it. And I had to eventually look at that place and say, no, I'm better than this. This doesn't justify my contribution. This is not an adequate example of what I bring to the table. I had to know whether or not I was being taken advantage of. And oftentimes people will tolerate you for what you give and how they benefit from your presence. But your presence should mean enough to make them appreciate what you bring to the table. Your presence should mean enough to make a person value it enough, to consider you enough, to count you as something that I don't want to lose or mishandle. So I don't think that we oftentimes take a moment to look at the value that we bring, what our expectation is, and how we are being appreciated in that moment. And again, this is not to promote any selfishness, but you want to make sure that you are not being taken advantage of and you're not discounting yourself. There are times where we are getting exactly what we expect. So if we raise the expectation, we may raise the get. And if we hold people accountable to the value that we set for ourselves, then that will determine how they treat us. So if we are okay with welcoming any type of behavior, there is somebody who is okay with presenting you with any type of behavior. So finding the level of importance that stops you from allowing yourself to overgive and to see yourself as a valuable entity, to see yourself as a contribution, and to hold the standard that someone else values you in that same way is the most important thing that you can do. Because you want to make sure that you are relatable. And we know that the seeds that we sow determine the harvest that we receive. So we want to sow good seeds to receive a healthy harvest. And so we definitely need to put ourselves in position to where we can count it a privilege for the person to be in our presence as much as we are in theirs.
Hey, appreciate you for tapping in with Leave It to Larry Moore. This is where thoughts get untangled and understanding gets built. Remember, you don't need a title to have a voice, and you don't need all the answers to start the conversation. If something from today's episode made you think, hit that follow button, share with somebody, and keep the convo going. I'm Bryant Larimore, and until next time, keep thinking and keep talking and keep growing. This is Leave It to Larimore.